31. I'm calling the session of the Planning Commission to order. Wednesday, March 9th, 2022. Well, let's roll call, please.
Commissioner Abadi,
Last night.
Commissioner Harvey, not present. Commissioner Rivera,
Present.
Vice Chair Mendoza, present. Chairman Harmoness.
Present.
Let the record reflect Commissioner Abadi and Harvey are not present.
Well, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. You prepared to lead us today? Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the justice for all. Be seated. Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
Chairman Hammerness, yes, we would like to amend the consent agenda to remove the December 22nd minutes, and we will be pulling item E1 from the agenda this evening.
I was so looking forward to that discussion.
I can assure you it will be back when all parties are ready.
I'm sure, yeah, I'm sure. All right, ready on with business. Public appearances, B1. Matters not appearing on the agenda. If you wish to address the Planning Commission concerning any item within the Commission's jurisdiction, please raise your hand and be acknowledged by the chairperson. It's me. And at that time, state your name and address for the record. The chairperson reserves the right to place a time limit on each person's presentation of 3 minutes. It is requested that longer presentations be submitted to the commission in writing. Are there any people here at this time who have anything they wish to bring to our attention that is not currently on the agenda? Let the record reflect there aren't any. B2, matters appearing on the agenda. If you wish to address the Planning Commission concerning any item within the commission's jurisdiction, please raise your hand and be acknowledged by the chairperson, still me, and at that time state your name and address for the record. The chairperson reserves the right to place a time limit on each person's presentation of 3 minutes. It is requested that longer presentations be submitted to the commission in writing. So I'm going to assume that you folks that are here are going to address items that are on the calendar. So when we get to that item, we will give you an opportunity to speak. Consent calendar, C1. Approved Planning Commission meeting minutes for September 8th, 2021, and special joint meeting of the City Council and Imperial Planning Commission February 2nd, 2022. Did you get that and get a chance to review it? Yes, no?
Yes, I did. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the Planning Commission meeting minutes for September of 2021 and the special joint meeting of the City Council of Imperial Planning Commission February 2nd of 2022.
Been moved and seconded. Call for the vote. Please vote. Oh, right. Let's see. Yeah.
Start voting.
So I push continue?
Yes.
There we go. I think it's only like the third time I've used that.
Motion passes 3-0.
Still figuring it out? Okay. Looking at it like give that glazed look like I get with my iPad sometimes. All right, Planning Commission new business, discussion action, recommend deny. D1, public hearing discussion action, conditional use permit 21-09. Going to open the public hearing at this time for the approval of resolution PC 2022-02. You want me to read the whole thing? Okay. Staff report.
The item before you is a request for conditional use permit to allow the operation of an auto body shop located at 302 South N Street. The applicant, Jose Jaime Barrera, is proposing an auto body shop for repairs and a paint booth facility that will operate under the name of Cavir's Auto Body Center. Mr. Barrera is an established City of Imperial business owner since 2010, and he has recently moved his business to this location. The proposed site plan includes an office and 2 work bays for auto body repairs within the existing building, and a paint booth facility located at the rear of the property. Hours of operation will be 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. However, he may be open occasionally on Saturdays if need be. The proposed project is located within the rail-served industrial zone, which requires a conditional use permit for auto body shops. The project is categorically exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act under Section 15301 of the guidelines. The public hearing scheduled for tonight, March 9th, 2022, was duly noticed in the Calexico Chronicle on February 24th, 2022, and a public hearing notice was mailed to all property owners within 300 feet of the proposed project site. Staff recommends the Planning Commission approve Conditional Use Permit 2109 to allow the use and operation of Cavir's Auto Body Center. The applicant, Mr. Barrera, is in attendance with his interpreter to answer any questions you may have.
All right. Thank you. Do we have any questions for Mr. Rivera? Correct?
Barrera.
Barrera, okay. I lost my page with the names on it. You know what was there before?
I don't have recollection. The owner is Nick Sanchez from NS Construction. But I honestly do not remember seeing a lot of materials within. It was just office only for their operations.
Okay. For Sarah? But well, my name gets mutilated too, but I apologize. So obviously there's a building here already. Do you know what the business was or what was being done there before you purchased it or leased it? Or are you leasing, renting? But you buy it? Okay. Okay. And I noticed in the pictures that it looks like there's a paint booth already there. So that was from the previous owners.
Oh, no, he's a.
Okay, okay. So where it shows in the plans for the paint booth, that's the paint booth in the plans. Okay. But it hasn't been used yet. Okay. Where was your business in El Centro? You say a business in El Centro?
Oh, it was in
Oh, it was in Imperial. Where was it at before?
2nd Street.
2nd Street, okay. And was this brought over from the old location? Or
Yes, it was.
Okay.
How long has he been in business?
Cuando empecé en el pueblo, empecé in Kearney, I had 10 years, since 2010, I believe. It's probably Club Pro.
Can you speak on the mic, please?
Oh,
Never had any problems before?
sí, no problema que siempre negocio. Como problemas con.
Like
Like
which
which kind of problems he's asking?
With obviously there's going to be standards, whether it's the fire code, the hazardous materials to fire, all these things. I expect, the reason I asked how many years he's been in business was if he's been an upstanding, obviously professional, doing what he does. I don't have very little reservation moving forward on this. It's just gonna be another day, a new location, another.
Well, currently, when he was on Second Street, all the paint was up to par with the fire code and fire extinguishers and all that, so that was just brought over to the new location. So everything else, he has no problems.
Okay. All right. I hope that made sense why I was asking that. It's one of those things where, this is a man that obviously, after 10 years, he knows his trade, he knows what's expected. New location, but I have very little reservation that he's going to change the way he does his day-to-day operations. That's why I was asking that.
Is this a larger facility than you had before?
Oh, that?
Is this a larger facility
Yes,
than
it
you had
is.
before?
Yes.
How much of an expansion is it?
¿Cómo cuánto está más grande el negocio que como antes que estaba en la otra locación? Sí, el negocio que grande está antes, hoy obviamente hoy está más grande. Sí, pero todavía quiero saber cuánto, qué más grande está hoy, como estaba antes. ¿El negocio? Sí, el negocio está bajo el sector. No, del espacio. No, el espacio está mejor, está más grande. Bueno, ¿en qué aspecto? Como en la comodidad que veo yo que para poner los carros está mejor coordinado todo, como lo vamos a hacer.
He says he has a better lot from the previous location. Previous location, there was only one bay. Now, in this new location, there's 2 bays now. So it's a bigger location.
Is it just an expansion of the size, or is he looking at hiring more employees, or is the business growing?
Sí, vas a querer, pues el negocio está creciendo, obviamente. Si no trae más gente en el futuro, claro, eso es lo que pretendo que
Yes, he's planning to expand.
ahora sí, within the location.
How many, just curious, how many cars was he able to work on and kick out a month at his old location?
¿Cómo cuánto? Por mes, cuando estaba en la segunda, yo creo que entramos como con
It's rough, it doesn't have to be exact.
aproximadamente unos 20 carros.
Awesome.
About 20 cars a month.
Do you anticipate being able to do more than that here? Or do you think that he have a need for that?
Depende porque como se tiene que ver el espacio, hay veces uno tiene que ir haciendo recesos también para.
Well, there's a schedule actually, like so. What it is well, cars will go in and they'll be in a schedule. So if it's really over, if there's a lot of cars in there, well, he'll stop the work and then they'll be put on a schedule, like on the calendar. So he won't have so much cars in there in the lot.
Right, yeah, you don't want a bunch of
Yeah,
people wondering why their car's not getting worked on,
Right.
sitting there for a long time.
Does this paint booth get secured and locked up after hours, or?
yes, overnight it does every day. It will get locked. There's a lock.
Sí,
lock.
Sí, pues no tiene, pero lo puedo poner para laquear.
Right now, it currently doesn't have a lock, but it will if it needs to. He'll be able to put a lock on there.
Yeah.
You started doing business out of the new site?
He's done a little
Casi
work,
estado más cerrado,
but
pues.
obviously he has no permit, so he hasn't been getting that much work in.
Okay, okay. How long has it been since he stopped working at the other site?
Como cuánto para hacer la otra
About
2 years.
2 years since he hasn't worked at the other site?
Yes.
Cuando cerramos allá,
And then they closed down, and then COVID hit. So
Oh,
yeah.
well, I know people still crash their cars even during
right.
COVID. Well, we need to get you back to work.
Yeah, he needs to go back to work.
Ya listo para regresar a la.
Ya listo, sí, claro, ya. Anything else?
And, Chairman, if I may,
Sure.
one of the questions is, how is the difference in square footage? On the old location was 7,622 square feet, and this new location will be 10,454.
Okay. Got a third bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Good, sir.
Yeah, I'm good. And like I said, for me is he's an established part of the community. He's been providing services to obviously Imperial and surrounding communities. It's and he's waited. He's obviously he's waited the process to come here and get our approval. I think it's time to send him back to work.
I can't argue with that. Okay, I'm gonna close the public hearing portion of this at this time. Are there any further discussions among the members?
No.
Staff, anything else you wish to add? All right, then let's call for a vote. I need a motion to approve or deny PC 2022-02. Correct?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution PC 20-22, approving conditional use permit CUP 21-09.
Second that. I second that.
Moved and second. Call for the vote or have the vote. I think mine worked.
Still,
One of them.
Motion passes 3-0.
Congratulations, sir. Get yourself back to work.
Good luck with the new.
Hopefully he's so busy he needs to use that rail service to bring in some of the customers.
Thank you for attending. Thank you for
Thank
taking
you.
the time to come here. All right, let's move on to D2. Public hearing, discussion action, amendment to ordinance 795 relating to cannabis in the city of Imperial. Open public hearing on resolution PC 2022-03. Staff report.
yes, Chairman and Commissioners. Before you, this was initiated as a directive from the City Council for the consideration to amend Ordinance 795 related to cannabis use within the City of Imperial. That ordinance does allow for medical and adult use. It does currently issue one all-exclusive permit. The definition of that terminology is all 7 uses permitted by the California Bureau of Cannabis Control are allowed exclusively to one operation. What this would do is potentially would be to amend that to allow for 2 exclusive permits. However, the second would only be an expansion for cultivation and manufacturing extraction. So only 2 of the 7 uses would be allowed for that second permit. With that, we would still recommend only allowing for operating that business within a C2 zone that is specific to our ordinance, as well as the guidelines of 1,000 square foot radius from any sensitive zones. Those would be your schools, your churches, your daycares, other facilities that are established. So keeping the C2 zoning as part of this ordinance it would allow for the permitted use in certain areas along the commercial corridor just south of Airport Road in that area of C2 zoning there. Just a bit of history, we did adopt the Ordinance 795 in 2018. It was amended in 2020 to allow for the adult use just for medical when it was previously adopted. We do have one current permit within the City of Imperial, and I'll stand for any questions that you might have with this.
So the key word here is cultivation and extraction, correct?
Correct.
We have somebody in that's interested in this.
No, so this would be the first stage of the process. Should this go through and be amended and the ordinance proposed 815 to amend be adopted by the city council, we would actually have to have a competitive process. Similar to that we did back in 2018 with the adoption. We solicited bids for that permit. It went through the review process, went through the recommendations, and was ultimately put forward to the council for final selection. This would follow that same process.
So, I don't want to cut in if
No,
you've got
go ahead.
some. So I'm looking at this is an amendment to the language, the B, the city manager may issue one. So this is the new language.
Correct. This,
This isn't the old language.
correct.
Okay.
That was
So-
actually the same paragraph that had stuck out with
The
me when it
question.
said that you may issue one new
Valid.
permit. What happens
Per
to,
year.
Yes, there,
but
so
there
Mark,
will only be one at all.
correct. There will only be one. It's not one per year. It's one to the same operator. So currently, the permit holder, which is March and Ash, they are up for annual review every year to the city council to make sure they are in compliance with their conditional use permit. We do a review to make sure that they have complied. Being that we just issued an amendment, obviously that will also be taken into consideration. That's reviewed in September. That's when the permit was awarded to them. So in September of each year, during a regular meeting of the city council, they have to come before and go through that process.
Now, do they have the option to apply for the second permit?
They are already able to
Cultivate.
cultivate, and yes, that was the amendment that they just went through.
And just to clarify on the proposed ordinance change, it's that second sentence beginning with additionally that was added. So that is the change that you were looking at.
It'd been nice if we'd have got the old one and the new one. I know you could go look it up. I tried to look some of this stuff up once. Send us the other one next time, because that was a mission. Actually, I don't think I found what I wanted. It was like that big. I was like, oh my God. Yeah. So why do we say new valid instead of making renew permit instead of new valid permit? Is there some reason why we're staying away from renew instead of new?
We would not want to set the precedence that they are guaranteed that permit each time. We need to make sure that they do meet those requirements with their conditional use, and they have thus far. There's not any concern there, but we do want to allow the council to have that approach should they need to exercise that.
Somebody wanted to come in and put together a better operation and say, yeah, we want that.
If the council were to decide to revoke the existing permit, we would have to again hold a competitive process.
Okay.
But with this being a new permit, that would insinuate that the old one's not valid anymore.
The additional permit, as identified in that second section, that would then hold its own renewal process once awarded. So both permits would be reviewed on an annual
I'm just
basis.
asking the question
Yeah.
because we have the one permit, and I know I'm stuck on line one
No, it's
whenever
okay.
you're
Oh, it's
actually
okay.
working on line two. But it says you can issue one new valid permit, but you're not renewing March and Ash. And if theirs expires after a year, they no longer have a permit. How does that not open it up for potential for somebody else to apply for it?
They are reawarded each review. If they're still in compliance and if the council so chooses, they're reawarded that permit. So it's in essence a new permit each time.
But they have to go through the process, because as long as they're jumping through all the hoops, they don't have to do that.
Correct.
So what's this part at the end? Delivery only dispensaries shall not be subject to this limit. What does that mean exactly? Because I mean, that makes it sound like if I go deliver it, I don't have any limits.
The state of California, and the city attorney can provide you a bit more information, but the state of California has ministerially allowed for delivery services throughout the state, and you cannot put a moratorium on those in your city. So therefore, we are not allowed to require them to pull this permit.
I think the language there is just to clarify that, so that there's no confusion as to those types of dispensaries.
Well, excuse me, but I'm confused.
Whereas,
Well,
our-
I'm confused because if this delivery only places aren't subject to limits, then what's to keep another delivery place from opening up if they don't have to get a permit?
they would not be able to have a physical location within the city of Imperial.
Okay, so if somebody wanted to have their cannabis delivered from San Diego,
Yes,
that would be allowed.
Correct.
Because it's like having a really long delivery pizza. Okay,
yes.
but, all right, okay, that clears the fog away.
Even though the adult use law says that various activities would be reserved for local jurisdictions to regulate, delivery being one of them, notwithstanding that the state has chosen to occupy the field with respect to delivery, much like they did with, taxis and rideshare, Uber and Lyft, so that if you get a permit from the state, then that permit is valid statewide. And so they did the same with delivery of cannabis.
That's different from being in our city. Oh,
Yes, if any
okay.
of those were to come and request to have an operation or warehouse within the city, they would have to go through this process and it wouldn't be eligible.
Right now, the only person who can physically deliver out of the city,
Is our current
Is
permit
March
holder.
Ash.
Yes,
and the other place won't be able to do that. They're strictly
just
a wholesaler.
passing through.
They're a
Oh, yes,
no, the
correct,
other
sorry.
Would be a wholesaler.
Yes.
They're gonna grow it and then sell it to March or sell it to somebody in San Diego or sell it to whoever.
Correct. Measure 8, I will just add that Measure H that was passed by the voters, that does put a sales tax. It does also include a square foot dollar amount, and that would be applicable to the second permit. So the $6 a square foot of canopy space for cultivation, that would be something paid to the city, but it would be wholesale, so there wouldn't be sales tax assessed on anything extracted or sold to another industry.
Righty.
Like the record to reflect Commissioner Abadi's on site at 6:52.
Yes, ma'am.
Apologize for being late, but so I understand, is this like, this, amendment to the ordinance objective is to clean up what Marsh and Ash received when they came here last fall asking to cultivate their, the marijuana manufacturer? So it's like to create a possibility that you have two separate entities?
No, ma'am, what it would do is, the current permit that March and Ash holds, is for all 7 uses. However, their conditional use permit did not have that, so when they came before you to amend, they aligned their CUP with the 7 uses that are allowed as part of our ordinance. What this does is it creates a second permit, separate, that would go through a competitive process in which we would select potentially a new cultivation manufacturer, but it would be exclusive to cultivation and manufacturing extraction.
Why do we need more drugs here in town? We already have one right there, has nice lights. I'm just expecting next time I drive by, I'll be neon, okay? Right? So I don't know why we want to encourage Imperial to get known as the drug city of the valley. Nice buildings. Is it revenue driven?
This specific initiative was put forward as direction from the city council to look at amending, so that's why it's before you.
Reason.
Money,
Has to be a motivation.
money.
Money, right?
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, money.
But the difference with this, with March, not that it's a lot, but they're not gonna sell it to people. So like, they're not, like March and Ash, you wanna go buy something, you go there and you buy it, right? Not that you would, I'm just saying you could.
Right.
But these guys are just like, they're just growing it. So like a alfalfa grower, he's gonna grow it, stack it, and then he's gonna sell it to a hay broker later. Well, that's what these people are doing.
That's not my point.
Well, no, I'm just trying to clarify,
Yeah.
ma'am. No,
Thank
I'm
you.
not-
I
yes.
appreciate that.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. So I just am, from what is the intent? Is it just money driven? So whatever works, we're gonna go ahead and do it. We don't take a position to say that, there's just so much, there's just one, right? And they got their ability to, manufacture and extract. So now we want to go and have a separate one. Well, myself, I'm opposed to it.
Noted.
This is that we're opening another, a separate facility. We're just we're just spelling out.
This would be a second, potentially a second facility. However, this would not be a retail. So
Okay,
that
yeah.
is the distinct difference. It's the analogy Chairman Hammerness uses is very much similar. That is what we're looking at here as far as the intent behind it. As to personal motivations, I can't answer that, Commissioner Abadi, but
I don't
understand.
think it's personal. I don't think it's personal, okay? Because the individuals, I don't think have their hands in the till in order to get a financial benefit. I just think that we're spending money to, improve the corridor there on, Imperial Avenue, as far as the main drag 86 and downtown. And then we are going to encourage the proliferation of, not dispensing, but drug production, drug retail at present. So, is that the type of businesses we want to draw? Okay? It's like a conflict. I see a conflict. You want to make things pretty for people to ride their bikes up and down the side and walk and like that, but we're going to have a bunch of, businesses that encourage people to be high while they're driving and might hit those guys on the bike. Okay? I think there is, I personally, think it's a need to take a stand, okay, not just go with the flow. That's what I had to say.
I appreciate your comments, and I to a certain degree, I can't say that I completely disagree with you. And it is an interesting conundrum. I mean, 10 years ago, we would have been talking about this, that would have been, ATF would have been here, people would have been here, like arresting us. Now it's like, oh, it's a business concern. So on that, my thought is, what would be the potential for the second company to eventually come to us and ask for a distribution permit?
I do think that that's something that is a possibility at some point. However, I can say that at this time, again, the drive for bringing this forward was a direction from the governing body. At this juncture, there is no intent to expand for a dispensary service or an additional method as to what March and Ash is in that model.
Is there any additional? Don't let me keep talking. You guys want to
Please.
butt me
Go
out?
ahead,
Please
Mark.
go ahead. Is there any additional state regulation or anything that prevents or state or county or city that sets a limit on like how many of these things we want to have in our county as a total, or is it kind of wide open like McDonald's?
There were, at this time, no. At least at that level, as Mr. Morita indicated, there's a level of local control. And I can say that I'm thankful for it. At one point, there was legislation introduced that was going to require communities to make mandatory permits available every two per ABC license within your jurisdiction. Luckily, that failed, I will say, because that would have really caused a lot of issues with that. But that was previous state legislator proposed. At least at this level, we have been able to control what has been allowed, as well as the standard of what has been allowed. If you do go to March and Ash, I can say that the product and the presentation of their facility and their business that they've provided, as well as all the safety protocols and working with our law enforcement, I would venture to say that is next to none as opposed to others in other communities. They've been great partners in that respect and been very open as to what their process is. We would be looking for the exact same of establishment and standard to come in into that competitive permit process, even just for cultivation. That would be an expectation.
Okay, but
I think they've set the standard pretty high, so, I mean.
I think as Alexis indicated early in her presentation, we're not asking that the zoning change. And so if you'll recall, the areas in the city in which these sorts of facilities are allowed is C2. And as Alexis indicated, there are those parameters dealing with the proximity to schools and churches and daycares and things of that nature. So if any of that is going to change, that it's going to go through this much the same process as we're having now. You're going to have an opportunity to weigh in. The public will be noticed and be given an opportunity to weigh in. Now, that's not to say that the state legislature could also, as we sit here today, as you'll recall, the adult use ordinance law, among other things, allows personal use. So what used to land you in federal prison and then got changed to $100 fine is now lawful. What used to land you in federal prison, you can now have 6 plants and for personal use. And so the laws are evolving in this area. Not to say it's right, wrong, or otherwise, but the laws are evolving.
No doubt about that. But there's no county control on this, though, as far as the number of, because I mean, these people could be going to the county and getting a permit and wanting to be out and wherever to grow this as well, which would not be our problem, but.
Now, it says cultivation. Are we actually gonna have them growing it here in the city? Like
Yes,
out
that-
in the open or?
No, it would have to be an indoor facility. We do not allow for open cultivation or open grow operations. As you would in an agriculture district.
That's what March and Ash is already doing inside in that building, so.
Right, they're already doing it. We're planning
Yes.
on doing it anyway.
Oh, yeah, planning on doing it.
But would the county allow open growing? Just not that, I'm just curious.
I believe at the facilities near Heber, may have cultivation, happening.
Actually outdoors.
Oh, I'm
cultivation.
sorry, not outdoors.
Yeah, outdoor, I mean because I know up in Washington, those places, they grow it outdoors.
Yeah, up to the north end, Morgan's family's growing it. They have been for the past few years.
I know that if you assign at a certain point that the county did align for research components with hemp and they were allowing for the outdoor grow operations of that, and specifically to the north that you're referencing, Commissioner Abadi, yes, as far as full, business models of industrial grow operations, I have yet to see any that are outdoor, even with, for example, Desert Hot Springs, our neighbors to the north. Those are all having to be indoor operations. Obviously, with our extreme weather temperatures, that's what the necessity would be to have a successful operation, at least in these extreme conditions here.
All right, we're kind of getting away from conversations, getting a little bit away from what we need to be focusing on here, so. All right, is there any other discussion on this for the public hearing portion? With that, I'm going to close the public hearing. And commissioners, any last thoughts on this before we put it to a vote?
I think, at least from my perspective, I think I want to move forward with it and simply put in the hands of the community. They can speak for it on their behalf, and they'll come over and they'll say whether this is what they'd like to see in the future. If you have somebody that steps up or they don't.
Well, unfortunately, we're not getting much in community involvement because we can see how many members of the community are here right now to inform us of their feelings on this subject.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's not your fault. I mean,
But it does still go to the council, right?
It does still go to the council. There still will be another public hearing process. And I will say, just in addition to that, recently the city council did approve a contract with Zen City. And we will be using their algorithms to distribute survey on this matter specifically to gain feedback from residents on the platforms that are being used that the city itself can't generally reach. So we just encourage anyone watching this public meeting to look for that on, if it's Nextdoor, the neighborhood watch apps, Ring apps, etc., to see a poll that might come before them and to vote, or just to attend a public meeting or contact us at City Hall.
Again, just to be clear, this is the first step of many. If you pass this on to the city council and the council amends the ordinance after having had a public hearing, then that will set in motion the process by which someone can apply for a permit. And that permit requires a whole set of public hearings on its own, and the permit has to be issued and will contain conditions to address the concerns about whether it's in the open or not. I've read some articles about the fact that the grow process generates an odor, and so there are jurisdictions that are having concerns with odor. So whether or not the county air pollution control would be involved at that level, we can address down the road. But what this certainly does do is it takes that first step to get the process in place to have a potential for a second cultivation operation.
But even if we don't approve it, it's still gonna go to the city council anyway, and there's still gonna have a public hearing and they can override us, because they're the ultimate authority. Is that not correct?
That's true. What you do today would be a recommendation. There are circumstances under which if depending on the findings that the council makes, it could find its way back to you to consider some additional information. But at the end of the day, Chairperson Amherst, you're correct. I mean, the city council is the legislative body, and they have the ability to adopt an ordinance.
I'll tell you some of my concerns. Number one, I'm not a fan of the fact that anybody can just purchase, and even recreational. It's just a personal thing. But I definitely don't like the fact that, like Commissioner Abadi said, we're trying to improve this thoroughfare. Now we've got March and Ash there. That's not the image I want Imperial to have, is to have a huge dispensary along the highway. And I'm concerned now we're going to be potentially putting a second one in. And if that corridor right there is included in this type of zoning, we're looking at a potential second one going in there. Again, not the kind of image I really want Imperial to have. That's not what I want Imperial to be known for. But on the other hand, I do understand laws are changing. People's, the world's changing. It's like I said, that's just my perspective of not liking marijuana and people potentially being high and, whatever. But so and like Commissioner Body was saying, she's saying, we're doing this highway and we're putting potentially high people. But I have to also think we've got 2 alcohol distributors right there in that same area, and they're putting potentially drunk people out on the road. So, you have to weigh both. I'm just, my big concern is what it's going to look like in the city to have our major thoroughfare potentially have to a dispensary and another manufacturing and cultivation. And I would be more, again, like we're saying, council can override us. I would be more apt to say, okay, I guess I can recommend taking this to, supporting it or giving council the recommendation to approve or whatever, if I knew it's not going to be right there on the main thoroughfare in the highway, right next to a child pediatrician,
Right.
And
right.
it's just
Candyland or whatever.
Yeah. But it's just that if we had some type of assurance that it's not going to be like right there in the forefront and where everybody passing through Imperial sees it and associates it with the city of Imperial, I'd be more apt to say, okay, let's approve and let's recommend it to the council. But is there any way to put any of that in there?
Keep in mind what you're making is a recommendation. Seems to me that if your recommendation would say that you would support the amendment, however, your feeling about the recommendation is based upon the fact that there would not be any sort of facility, and then fill in the blank for what areas, along the Highway 86 corridor, along the Imperial Avenue corridor, along the wherever it might be. I think if you're you can make a recommendation that would specify that sort of limitation.
Without having to name them all, does our zoning ordinance or any of our plans have identified major arterial streets?
As to cannabis or?
No, just as for like a circulation element or something, do we have an element in our general plan or zoning ordinance, anything that identifies arterial streets within the, to where if we were to make a recommendation that to council, you know, to consider the adding this second permit, as long as it is kept away from all major arterial streets, would that be a?
The one issue, and Ms. Brown has the map in front of her. I think the way the ordinance is currently written, taking into consideration all the restrictions, that area that you're speaking about may be the only place where they currently could be located. So making a change like that may require additional changes to the ordinance.
One consideration as I look at the map here is, as I said, we wouldn't want to amend C2 zones. I think when I say that, just to kind of put some context, is there's other zones that abut those sensitive zones, meaning industrial. But obviously those are in certain, there's also our industrial and heavy industrial, our I2 zones that don't abut, there's some areas that they don't abut those sensitive zones. So you, in the amendment, because Attorney Holbrook is correct that the C2 zones that we're talking about that really meet all of the requirements as to being 1,000 square foot out of sensitive zones, it is the major thoroughfare along 86 where it is. However, in your recommendation, if you were to make the recommendation to council in consideration of additional zoning options. For example, some certain I2 zones would meet the requirements as far as not being next to daycares, churches, facilities, and they would not be abutting the major thoroughfares that you're speaking of. So that's a consideration of asking the council to look at that amendment as long as it meets those parameters.
But the industrial rail area east of the railroad tracks, there's a lot of vacant land over there and one body shop that we just.
Well, in that area where the body shop is, there's a lot of residential in that as well, so there'd be overlap. But on the back
Well,
end,
we could go north a little bit. It gets a little farther away from it.
on the back end specifically, where we're even talking about our current distribution, Alfred's and Claypool, towards closer to the rail service areas there, on both of those sides, that is our I zones and I2 zones. That those would be areas that would be acceptable and out of the sensitive zoning and away from the eye of the main artery of the city.
And if anybody's planning on making a recommendation, we can just put it where this location restriction is only for that second permit, so that it doesn't affect March and Ash, who's already established their business. It's just the secondary cultivation and manufacturing permit that we need to not put a second one over there.
That we would be expanding the zone from C2 to include industrial rail served.
And
Yes.
prohibiting it from being along.
Yes. So that definite, as far as a recommendation in your motion, if that is you choose to recommend the resolution contingent on these items specifically, then we can make sure that that is conveyed to the city council.
I have a question. So are we gonna include it in the C2 zone, or are we gonna exclude it? Cause the C2 is along Highway 86.
There are a few areas of C2 in the city, but the main is along 86. I wouldn't exclude it because you do have a current facility within that zone.
Talking about the,
Right, expanding it would be to then amend the ordinance. We would need to amend the ordinance to expand to the additional zones, but to be away from the major arterial streets as identified in our general plan.
Yeah, but you're talking, the way you're saying it is you're going to expand it to make those areas available. I want to exclude it from the Highway 86 area. But just that second permit. My head's going.
Any recommendations
someone
from
else try
staff
this
on
one.
how to try to,
I already did the first two. Go ahead.
no, you're.
I think we understand the intention as far as the language. I'll work with the city attorney to get that worked out as it goes forward to the city council, so it is conveyed appropriately. But understanding what you're saying, excluding from that area.
Does this need to go to council next week?
No, we need to notice a public hearing, so it would, depending on, noticing, you would be looking at, the meeting in April.
I was wondering if there's any way you guys could take this back to City Hall and work on some language options for us and bring it back to us in next meeting?
I would say that,
that's what I would like to
can.
see happen.
Let's work.
Okay.
I would say continuing the this public hearing,
Yes.
for that purpose. It would be certainly within your discretion to do.
And while I don't exercise much discretion, I would like to exercise this discretion.
Because one thing that occurs to me as we're having this discussion is that I can appreciate you wanting to exclude certain areas. And so I would want to make sure and put pencil to paper and see what that really means. If we go through this whole rigmarole to amend the ordinance, and then we say, okay, what areas meet all the criteria? That is, it's C2, it's not in the vicinity of an arterial, it's 1,000 feet from school, 1,000 feet from church, and then we realize there's no property in the city that meets all that, then we've gone through that whole exercise for nothing. So I think if for no other reason, that we want to make sure that a recommendation to the council that excludes certain areas still has some property, some land in the city where it could happen.
C2, and I
Otherwise,
think
why
we're
do
talking
it?
about expanding.
I think
to
the
that.
rail area,
Expanding
there's
it to
some
rail.
room in the rail area, I think that could probably meet that without, because there's a lot of vacant land over there that's definitely a ways away from houses, except there's a few spattering of homes in there, and definitely aren't any schools over there that I've noticed.
We would, yes, what we would do is just look at the different zoning and certain businesses, and we would plot the radius and make sure that within those certain areas, it would be allowable there, and the expansion of including additional zoning and moving it away from, so we could do that and bring that back to you. So it would be a continuation, as Mr. Morita said, continuation of this public hearing to the next regular meeting of the commission. That would be an action that you would take, and that meeting date would be, March 23rd.
Have the middle school ready for us by then, potentially?
I make no promises. But that is my hope.
So we need a
yeah.
motion to continue this, or do I just
Yeah.
say?
No, we need a motion and an action. Mhm.
Okay, I need a motion. I would like a motion to continue this to the next meeting.
I will make a motion that we continue this item to the March 23rd meeting.
Yes.
Do we need to include the resolution in the motion or not? Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote. You gotta do it electronically.
Motion passes to continue to the next meeting on 3/23/40.
Oh, we've guaranteed a meeting, so we're gonna get an extra $50. There's a way to do it. All right, move, thank you. Okay, so we're done with all that. So, on to reports. Oh, that got tabled. or moved.
That item has been pulled
Pulled.
and will be brought back to the commission once the school district is ready to be a part of those conversations as well. So,
Yeah,
so
they're-
hopefully we have that on your 23rd agenda, but I make no promises.
Right. So yeah, so we've been saved a little bit of work there. So, on to reports, F1, commissioners' reports. Commissioner Body?
I have an inquiry. Intersection of Ayton and Austin. That's where we get on to the county. Has there been discussion with the county to put some type of traffic light? Because it really is a bottleneck. And my concern is, I can't remember the name of the street that runs north and south just before where traffic's coming out of the Sandalwood and the Sky Ranch, and you got big buses making a turn, and it's coming narrow to go over the Central Main Canal. And, it's right, it starts like at
Sa-
7:30 in the morning.
Sandalwood Glen.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And it's like, some people get a little antsy, because I drive that, okay? And they're like playing chicken to see who's gonna get into the narrow. So has there been discussion with the county to share, to get funds, to put up a stoplight?
There have been preliminary discussions. There's 3 entities there. It's as far as right of way, you have ourselves, you have Imperial Irrigation
ID,
District,
yeah.
and then you have the county of Imperial. There's been discussion, but nothing further than just that,
Comment.
just surface level conversations. I can tell you when it came to the intersection of Brewer and Austin, that was quite extensive. To even get that 3-way stop when we eventually did there. But it's definitely something that we can enter into conversations again with our counterparts in those areas.
You already have a 4-way stop there. It's gonna have to have something to keep the traffic flowing.
I know when we did the repaving of Ayton, that was when the conversations were being had as far as, trying to see if we could widen, because that's also part of that bottleneck as you head west at that intersection. It narrows to the 2-lane from the 4-lane coming off of it. So that was the last we had broached the subject with the entities, but we can resume those discussions. It's the bridge there that would be the most infrastructure improvement to get to the county property.
Improvement, but it's, they're on Ayton Road. First part.
It's gonna continue heading west on the, south side of Ayton Road.
But I wanna compliment the landscape people. They're doing a good job. Looks really nice. I
That would
hope the
be our,
plants survive.
our Parks Department. That is our Parks Director, Tony Lopez, and his crew. And that's Ayton Phase 1. There will be Phase 2, as you said, as you continue to head west, the beautification of that area of trees and landscaping. Yes. We will pass that on to them. No. It wouldn't go there. It's residential. Doesn't work great.
That all, Commissioner Body?
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Rivera?
Considering that here we're gonna have some we're gonna consider striping down at the middle school. I'll be getting with the offices, if how the numbers have looked since we did the striping on Brewer and Mirador. See how that worked out. I've seen the estimates on the painting.
Is that nuts or what?
So I want to make sure that it's effective with what we've applied and what we're going to consider.
The price tag that was a part of your agenda item, it did include the red curbing and the installation of limited parking signs. So it did appear that we were going to green curb, if you will, those areas, but that is the installation of no parking. So it's the actual installation of that signage. So the purchase, labor, and installation into
That's really
concrete.
some really expensive signs or some really expensive labor. Because that's,
It's the materials and the labor. Yes.
yeah, but aren't we already paying for the labor? I mean, it's our own people, right? They get paid whether they put in a sign or they sweep up trash.
That is correct, but we want to make sure that you have all the numbers, including our staff. We don't want to hide any of
Well,
our.
no, I mean, I understand you have to mean, when the staff people work, you have to show where those hours were used. I mean,
Correct.
I get that, whether you're spending the money or not, it's like, okay, they did this much work and during that 4 hours of time, they did this work and that was allotted out to X number of dollars.
It's just basically providing the full overview of how much it's gonna cost the city.
The school
the staff
district.
Of the school district, so,
Oh, the school doesn't pay for it. Well, then bill them away.
So are they installing or is the city installing and they're reimbursing the city? I know we're not supposed to, this
is,
item
yes,
was
I would
not-
say
Well, no,
it's
Well, you know, it's commission, it's our report, so as far as I'm concerned, that's a free-for-all.
Well,
So,
I would just say this, I wish the school was here for this discussion,
yes.
because, the traffic issues at Frank Wright were traffic issues before Starbucks, McDonald's, or the post office was a glimmer in anybody's eye.
right,
And so, to the extent that the traffic measures that are being discussed, have costs associated with them, it would be our expectation, at least at the staff level, that the school assume those costs. Now, if they want those traffic measures, we have ordinances that set forth a process, and you know, as the traffic commission, that you would be in the process to approve whatever those measures are that are gonna end up in city right of way. But as part of that, is obviously the cost. So, like I said, I wish the school was here to hear this
right,
again.
yeah.
But in any case, at least,
We'll be having that
it's our thought
conversation,
that,
Yeah,
hopefully soon.
we need to get ourselves out of this rabbit hole before we go down any farther. But continue.
We get Second Street once the fair's done? That's completely done? I mean, I don't know if I don't know if it was
Yes.
scheduled to work out that way, but I mean,
Somebody
It was-
threatening it too.
No,
it looked flat,
because,
it looked good.
Vice Chair
and then the fair-
Mendoza and I were exchanging text messages, on that subject, but yes, Don can explain us to the, Second Street the project.
I mean, we completed the pavement and the sidewalks. We're not done yet, but at least we were able to, have that completed for the fair. So there's still a little bit of striping here and there and whatnot, but yes, we were very close.
Bravo, I mean, if we had timed it any worse, the machinery would have been picking up kids, taking them across the road into the entrance.
We were just gonna make it an attraction.
Yeah,
It'll be
exactly.
like the first
Yeah.
ride of the fair when you get, no, but
A couple of weeks ago, that's what I was starting to think.
contingency plans.
You gotta have faith.
I want
That's
to thank the Boy Scouts for their continued participation with Paseo del Sol and helping some of those basins, put in some of that equipment.
Yes, the Boy Scout Troop 4070 specifically here in Imperial, they've been very active as part of our park rehabilitation and some of our Prop 68 projects. So they were part of the rehab of Evans Park. They probably got more than they bargained for because at the last one, they've learned new skill sets each time, but they got to understand crack seal for our basketball courts and painting and all that kind of stuff. So they've been a great support, and it's wonderful to work with them.
As crazy as that sounds, 10 years from now, one of those kids may be able to sell that as a skill for a job.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a big promoter that those small things, and I see some of the feedback on it is it's a young community. 20 years from now, those young children, whether those young boys or girls, can say, you know what, I helped put in that park bench or that whatever it happens to be. That's your connection to the community, and that's why I promote a lot of those things. Yeah, we can wait and expect the city or city employees or contractor to come out and doing it, but when it's your own hands putting in the concrete or the bench or whatever it happens to be, it ties you into the community that much more. You help put that in, you help put that park in, whatever it happens to be, a tree, shrubs. So it's coming out of the Boy Scout troop. Bravo to them.
That's great. I would see, being a former Boy Scout, I'd like to see that. I wish I'd known about it. Thanks for telling me the last time we were together.
Don't worry, we'll have more parks.
Commissioner Mendoza.
The only thing that I can think of right now is that I did attend the farmer's market and was able to help assist in the booth for the Friends of Imperial Foundation, Imperial Parks Foundation. And I just wanted to say thank you to staff and everybody that put that together. It was an amazing time, and a lot of people were having a lot of fun, and I was glad to see that. So thank you to all the staff for all the hard work on that.
Yeah, I saw you show up. Yeah, as I was leaving.
And I did my half my hours.
Split shifts.
Well, I started earlier. They had me in water conservation.
Yep.
Which I wonder if that wasn't intentional, because I think single household wise, I probably used the most water of any home in the entire city. And I was wondering if maybe that was a dig at me, like maybe to cut back. Because,
No, but now that I know it,
oh, I'm sure you would just check the records. You'd be like, oh my gosh. But you come see my yard, you understand why. Yeah, no, it was a good time. I enjoyed doing it, even though yeah, well, I won't get into that. And he had some interesting issues, but I don't know how that turned out. We won't bring them up here. But we had a good time. We do need to discuss the permits getting into the hospitality booth, because I ran into some hostile hospitality initially, and I had to, but it was okay. She was a good gatekeeper, and you know what? She probably kept out the riffraff. I mean, she kept me out for a long time, so she did her job. So. Yeah, because I would consider myself riffraff. So the last thing I'm going to bring up, which is, so I actually had at market days, a citizen come up to me to discuss the sidewalks in the vicinity of the lot. I believe it's 11th Street and Imperial Avenue, which was a lot that it had a building on it. Then we cleared it. It was cleared. The city was going to put the bus, I can't think of a good name for it, bus collection center.
the transit center.
Transit center, yes.
Okay.
The transit center was, because we know what lot we're talking about now. I think that was originally considered for that space.
Can you give me one more?
We're talking catty corner from Subway.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
would
empty
be
lot
about right.
that's catty corner from Subway.
The previous what's referred to as the Havens property. Is that what we're?
Maybe. That's why I'm asking.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
So that is,
But I was wondering who owns it.
that is the future site of our senior La Luna apartments. That will be moving forward June. There was an expected groundbreaking late May, early June for that.
Okay, so that lot's, that was my question. Does that lot have any plans for?
Yes.
Okay, because
They were a second award of the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities Grant, not in the same amount as the Worthington apartments. They're off of Nance and of Worthington in that area, but in a couple of other respects, and they're moving forward this late spring, early summer with that, and it will be a senior multifamily living, but senior only. For that complex. And
it's privately owned by somebody else. It's not owned by the city or anything
Correct.
like that. Okay. Yeah, because the sidewalks in that area are literally a minefield. I mean, it's bad, and somebody's going to hurt themselves. But if we have development coming, it's going to hopefully take care of that in the near future, then problem solved.
It will be a mixed use similar to Worthington Square development. So with commercial retail on the bottom and residential on top.
Excellent. See, problem solved. All right. Anything else? Staff reports. Mr. Attorney?
No report, thank you.
All I'm going to say is just thank you to all of you that volunteered. And I know that Commissioner Harvey is absent, but thank you so much for all of your help during the tri-tip cook-off, all of you, because it is the most cumbersome event to put on, if you will, and it takes the most staff. We had to have 52 staff and volunteers to execute that event, and it went very, very well. And just thank you for the roles that all of you played in that.
So just for
I didn't either, but I heard it.
I went to get some tickets, but I went to see the lines first, and the lines were like so long. I'm like, yeah, by the time I get there won't be anything left, so why buy the tickets? But yeah, I didn't get any either, so I don't feel bad. I'm just curious. I think like 4 of the 5 planning commissioners, or do we all participate?
You all participate.
How many city council? That's what I want to hear. And thank you, Planning Commission, for stepping up and letting the city council know that we're there.
Yes.
Nothing to report?
Yvonne, thank you for the report tonight.
Anything from you?
Nothing for me?
Guys in the back? Good? All right. All right, then with that, we will adjourn this, scheduled meeting of the Imperial Planning Commission until Wednesday, March 23rd, correct?
Yes.